Welcome back to the power of the BI. That's right. Welcome back to another lesson, another video, not necessarily a lesson, but welcome back to another video on the power of the BI. Recently, actually last week, not necessarily trying to be too professional, too corporate about this thing, but last weekend I held what I would consider to be, or what some consider to be, a master class on business intelligence, and I actually used Power BI to demonstrate what business intelligence actually looks like. The model or the project that I used or that I was describing was a dashboard created for professional sports. This dashboard is not a dashboard of the Professional Football League. I was not, attending, it's not my intentions to make this dashboard seem as if it's a contract or something like that with the Professional Football League. It's not. Basically, I am a sports enthusiast. As a matter of fact, I like pretty much, I ain't gonna say all genres of sports, but I just like competition. In this particular case, I use the Professional Football League as the American Professional Football League as I use the data from the American Football League to build this project. The reason why I'm having this video here is because I received a lot of feedback of individuals asking, well, what did the final project look like? What did the final dashboard look like? Are we going to be able to use it? Can I use it for my fantasy sports? Can I use it for my online betting? Can I use it to make predictions and determine and stuff like that? And the answer to that is yes. I mean, it's going to be. I'm going to make it available. I'm not 100% through with it, but those that want, you can have access to it. It is not for pay, right? It's just something that we were building out in our class session. If you were to build a dashboard, what would it look like? Session, as we were in our quote unquote master class. Now again, it wasn't necessarily a master class. It was just strictly an online Zoom webinar. Me showing, hey, this is what you can do with Power BI if you were so inclined, if you were interested. The overall point here is Power BI is not just for sports. Power BI is business intelligence, is building business intelligence visualizations. So no matter what industry you're in, no matter what company you work for, everybody needs business intelligence. Whether they're using business intelligence to this level, be it Power BI or Tableau or Click, every organization, in order to grow, in order to really stay in tune with the competition, they're going to have to use business intelligence. Either use it or fall way behind. So where I'm going with that is we're just using this dashboard that we created to show you that no matter what you want to do in business, and understand that sports is a business, professional sports is a business. I mean, it's a multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar business, right? So just because you like sports just because it's sports doesn't mean that it's not business. But what we used was the statistics of the sports, not necessarily the ticket sales and things like that, because that's something that I don't necessarily have direct access to. But no matter what business you're in, you can use business intelligence. So as we go over, we see here, this is the dashboard that was created. This is the dashboard that was created. And we built this dashboard out one visual at a time. And when I say a visual, I mean, we started out with the table visual, and this is our table. Then we went up, and I think we did cards. Not exactly sure, but the cards are just, well, let me back up. So the table is just like a spreadsheet. It's just like a spreadsheet. It's the data that we brought in initially. And basically we created a table, and then we brought in all the data that was used in this report. Not all the data, but just the data, as we see here, the data that was used for quarterbacks, So the data that we see here is we see that this is the data that we brought in, and it looks like it's a spreadsheet, right? It looks like it's an Excel spreadsheet, but it's actually the data, and we call it a table in business intelligence. So we used all of this data for quarterbacks, and we brought in all this information for the quarterbacks, and we said, hey, we're going to build a dashboard for professional football players, professional football statistics, just to get an idea of, what do the numbers really say? What do the numbers really say? And then we got even deeper into how we were going to build a dashboard. We say not just football players, we're going to build it with just certain positions. And the positions that we chose to use were quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, defense, overall, team, and I think that was it. Well, as a matter of fact, I know that that's it. And the reason why we chose that is because we had several guys that were on the call, that were on the Zoom call, that said, "Hey, let's do it for so I can analyze my fantasy sports." And some guys said, "Hey, I want to be able to make predictions or use better judgment when I make do my online betting." So that's pretty much why we use what we used. That's why we use the data that we use in this particular report. Then we came to the understanding and said, hey, we're not going to try to do all the football. We're not going to try to do all of the positions or all the positions that we're identifying right now. We're going to build this thing out one position at a time. And that's what we have to do when we're building out business intelligence reports, when we're building out dashboards. We want to focus in on what's important, or at least focus in on one particular entity first, and then build out the different entities. And at the end, we build out a summary report of all of the entities that we have analyzed. So in this case, as we're looking here, we see that we are only looking at quarterbacks. We're only looking at quarterbacks. And we started out with the table, and in the table, we poured in all of the player information, the player name, attempts, completions, yards per attempt, completion percentages, passing yards, touchdowns for the quarterbacks. I think we had 20-yard passes, 40-yard passes, the quarterback rating. What else do we have here? I think that's all. Completion percentages. And then what we did was we took the information in the table and we said we want to visualize the data in this table in different ways, not just looking at a spreadsheet. Not because looking at a spreadsheet, like in many cases, just like looking at a piece of paper, right? And it's so much data on there that now you've got to cipher through. What you're looking for. You're trying to find the passing yards and who is the leader, and then you got to take a calculator and you got to add and subtract and all that kind of stuff. Well, Power BI allows us not to have to do all of that. It's a data visualization tool, as we've said. So the first thing we did was we created cards, and basically what a card does is a card just gives you one snapshot, right? It gives you one snapshot. It says, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and this is the value of that. This is what I'm looking for, and this is the value of that. This is what I'm looking for, and this is the value of that. So if you come up to the top of the report, as I highlight here, there was a card that was created. And what we're looking for here is attempts. So the question is, how many attempts did the quarterback make? And then we came over and we created another card and we said completions. How many completions did the quarterback make? Now, we come over and we create another card and we said, we got how many attempts and how many completions, but how many yards did they complete per attempt? And this is that card. Then we created another card and we said we want to know the completion percentage of attempts versus completions. And that is the next card, right? Now, before we got to all of these pretty colors and the color schemes, it was all a simple white report. It was just a simple, almost like a white sheet of paper, if for the lack of any better term. And So if you can imagine that we don't have any colors on here, it's all white. And now we have a table down here that has the quarterbacks, and we have a table, inside the table, it's giving us all the information. It's giving us the first down percentage, 20-yard passes, 40-yard passes, attempts, completions, completion percentages, interceptions, the longest pass, passing yards, player. Well, actually, the player is the player. The quarterback rating, the sack yards, the touchdowns, and the yards per attempt. Right. Well, we said, hey, if we're getting the information, if we have a visualization. We have a visualization, and that visualization is telling us the attempts. Another visualization is telling us the completions. Another visualization is telling us yards per attempt. And another visualization is telling us the completion percentage. We don't need to see that information down here in the table because we already have it up here. So we took that data out of the table. Then we said, well, let's analyze this data a different way. Can we see, what was the minimum and the maximum of passing yards and touchdowns and quarterback ratings? So we said, yeah. So one visual that we used to visualize this is the gauge. So then we created a gauge where we brought in a gauge visual, and we said we wanted to know the minimum passing yards and the maximum passing yards. We want to know the minimum touchdowns and the maximum touchdowns. We want to know the minimum quarterback rating and the maximum quarterback rating. Now, I'm going to touch on the quarterback rating here in a minute because if you can imagine, we say, well, the minimum quarterback rating is 0 and the highest quarterback rating is 146.8. There were some questions and some discrepancies and some, not necessarily discrepancies in the data, but some discrepancies in why certain quarterbacks shouldn't be considered in the quarterback rating. So we'll talk about that here shortly. So what we ended up doing was we created what's called a measure, a DAX measure, which is a calculation to determine the minimum number of quarterback yards. We did the same thing for the maximum quarterback yards. We did the same thing for the minimum touchdowns, the same for maximum touchdowns, and the same for quarterback rating, the minimum quarterback, minimum quarterback rating and maximum quarterback rating. Actually, we didn't have to create a calculation for that because that was already just a standard value that was already built in. Well, not necessarily built in, but the minimum quarterback rating is 0, and the maximum quarterback rating is whatever the highest quarterback has. So now, when we look at the table, we've already pulled out attempts, completions, yards attempts, and completion percentage. Now we're going to pull out passing yards, touchdowns, and quarterback rating. All of these values were once upon a time inside of the table, but we pulled that information out because we didn't want to double count or double visualize, that information. Reason being is when we're looking at a dashboard, we only like to see, we want to be able to see the information. We don't want to just keep visualizing the same data over and over and over and over. If you know the maximum passing, if you know the passing yards, okay, why do I need to see that in the gauge, and I need to see that in the table, and I need to see that in the card? You don't. If the passing yards is 129,000, or if the passing yards is 4624, why do I need to see that again? You don't. So now I am coming back down and I'm looking at the numbers in red. Again, these are card visuals. Just like up here, these counts up here are just cards. You're saying, hey, I want to see interceptions. He threw X amount of interceptions. I want to see sacks. He was sacked how many times? I want to see sack yards. He lost how many